On February 28, 1967, Brazilian police walked into a Volkswagen factory in São Paulo and arrested a 60-year-old Austrian man at his workstation. He had worked there for 16 years under his real name. He held an Austrian passport. He was registered with the consulate. To his colleagues, he was just another factory employee. But Franz Stangl was the former Commandant of Treblinka. Franz Stangl was born on March 26, 1908 in Altmünster, a small town in Upper Austria. He joined the Austrian police force in 1931 and transferred to the Criminal Investigation Department in Wels by 1935. His early career showed no indication of what was to come. He was a competent investigator known for following procedures and maintaining detailed records. Colleagues described him as methodical and efficient, qualities that would later define his wartime role. Everything changed on March 12, 1938, when Nazi Germany annexed Austria in the Anschluss. Within weeks, Austrian institutions were absorbed into the German Reich, and civil servants faced a choice: adapt or resign. Stangl chose adaptation. He joined the Nazi Party in May 1938 and the SS in November 1938. These were not forced enrollments. Stangl volunteered, driven by ambition more than ideology. The SS offered advancement opportunities that peacetime Austria never could. In late 1940, Stangl received orders to report to Berlin. He was assigned to a program with a deliberately vague name: the General Foundation for Welfare and Institutional Care, codenamed T4 after its Berlin address. The program's actual purpose was the euthanasia of disabled individuals deemed unfit by the Nazi regime. From January 1941, Stangl served as police superintendent at Schloss Hartheim, a facility near Linz. Between January 1941 and May 1942, approximately 18,000 people died there. Stangl's role was administrative and security-focused. He supervised the police guard detail, managed paperwork, and ensured the facility operated without interference, never questioning the orders he received. The work at Hartheim provided Stangl with experience that shaped his next assignment. He learned how to manage sensitive operations, maintain secrecy, and organize complex logistics under pressure. In March 1942, as the T4 program wound down under public pressure, Stangl received new orders. He was transferred to Action Reinhard, the codename for operations in occupied Poland. His destination was Sobibor, a newly constructed camp in the Eastern Territories. There he served as deputy commandant under Franz Reichleitner, overseeing the arrival of deportation trains and the confiscation of victims' belongings. He adapted quickly to the work, applying the same bureaucratic efficiency he had shown at Hartheim. Stangl's performance at Sobibor was noted by his superiors. Within 6 months, he received a promotion that would define his place in history. In September 1942, he was appointed Commandant of Treblinka, located approximately 80 kilometers northeast of Warsaw. He arrived at a facility already in operation, and his task was to improve its efficiency and maintain order among the staff. Treblinka camp occupied a remote forest clearing in northeastern Poland, deliberately positioned near the main Warsaw-Białystok railway line. When Stangl arrived in September 1942, the camp had already been operating for 2 months under its first commandant, Imfried Ebert. The facility was chaotic and poorly organized, prompting Stangl's appointment with clear instructions from SS Brigadeführer Odilo Globocnik. The camp needed to run more smoothly and maintain stricter discipline. Under Stangl's command from September 1942 to August 1943, Treblinka became a model of organized operations. Trains arrived daily, sometimes multiple times per day, each carrying between 2,000 and 6,000 deportees. The unloading followed a precise routine that Stangl refined over months. Guards ordered victims onto a platform disguised as a normal railway station, complete with painted signs, a fake clock, and posted timetables. SS personnel and Ukrainian auxiliary guards sorted arrivals, separated families, and confiscated valuables. Stangl established management systems that ran with bureaucratic precision. He catalogued property seized from victims, organized work details of Jewish prisoners forced to maintain the camp, and imposed strict schedules on the staff. He treated the camp as a business operation, complete with efficiency targets. Survivors who later testified remembered Stangl as a distant figure who rarely interacted directly with prisoners. He toured sections of the camp regularly, often dressed in white riding clothes and riding a white horse. Former prisoners described him as cold and detached, a man who treated the camp as an administrative challenge. Between July 1942 and October 1943, hundreds of thousands of people died at Treblinka. Most victims came from the Warsaw Ghetto, transported in waves as the ghetto was systematically emptied. Other trains arrived from Radom, Lublin, Białystok, and cities across occupied Poland, as well as from Theresienstadt and several Balkan countries. On August 2, 1943, everything changed. A group of Jewish prisoners who had secretly stockpiled weapons and planned an uprising for weeks launched their revolt in the early afternoon. They attacked guards, set buildings ablaze, and breached the camp's perimeter fence. Approximately 200 to 300 prisoners escaped into the surrounding forests, though German forces and local collaborators recaptured most within days. Fewer than 70 survived the war. The uprising marked the beginning of Treblinka's end. Stangl was not present during the revolt, having left the camp earlier that day. Within weeks, he received orders transferring him to Trieste, Italy, where he worked in anti-partisan operations for the remainder of the war. Behind him, Treblinka was systematically dismantled. By November 1943, no visible trace of the camp remained. The Nazis had ploughed over the site and planted trees, attempting to erase all evidence. When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, Franz Stangl was in northern Italy. American forces captured him within days and placed him in an internment camp in Austria. The chaos of the immediate post-war period worked in his favor. Allied authorities had lists of wanted war criminals, but Stangl's name did not appear on the highest priority rosters. The camp at Treblinka had been so thoroughly destroyed that investigators initially knew little about it. The Americans transferred him to Austrian custody without recognizing his significance. In 1947, Austrian authorities imprisoned Stangl in Linz on a minor charge. He remained there for nearly a year, still unidentified as the former Treblinka commandant. Then in May 1948, he escaped with help from Bishop Alois Hudal, an Austrian cleric based in Rome and known Nazi sympathizer who facilitated his escape through what would become infamous as the Rat Line. Hudal operated from a German-speaking seminary in Rome. He believed anti-communism justified assisting former Nazis, viewing them as allies against Soviet expansion. His network provided false documents, temporary shelter, and travel arrangements. Stangl reached Rome in June 1948, where Hudal's organization issued him Red Cross travel papers under his real name. The Rat Line did not hide identities, it simply moved people quickly before authorities could act. From Rome, Stangl traveled to Damascus, Syria. The Syrian government asked few questions about German refugees. Stangl found work at a textile factory and lived quietly from 1948 to 1951, sending letters to his wife Teresa and their 3 daughters in Austria. During this period, he maintained a low profile, avoiding attention from both local authorities and the small network of Nazi hunters beginning to track fugitive war criminals. In 1951, Stangl obtained a visa to Brazil using his real name. He arrived in Sao Paulo and found employment at the Volkswagen factory in Brooklyn. The work was legitimate and routine, and in 1954, Teresa and their daughters joined him to begin their new life. The family settled into a small house, living an unremarkable middle-class life. Stangl registered with the Austrian consulate and even obtained an Austrian passport through official channels, making no effort to hide his identity. The critical mistake came in 1964 when Teresa applied for an Austrian passport at the consulate. The application required her to list her husband's address. That document reached the Austrian Federal Police. Simon Wiesenthal, the Nazi hunter who maintained contacts within Austrian law enforcement, saw the name Franz Stangl linked to a Sao Paulo address. He had been searching for Stangl since survivors began providing testimony about Treblinka. Wiesenthal contacted West German authorities and provided Stangl's exact location. On February 28, 1967, Brazilian federal police walked into the Volkswagen factory and arrested Franz Stangl at his workstation. He had lived openly in Brazil for 16 years under his own name. Franz Stangl was extradited to West Germany on June 22, 1967. He arrived in Düsseldorf, where prosecutors had been building a case for months. The investigation into Treblinka had begun in the late 1950s, intensifying after the 1961 Henchmen trial brought international attention to unpunished war criminals. The trial opened on May 13, 1970, nearly 3 years after his arrest. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal observers, and survivors who had traveled from Israel, the United States, and across Europe. For many survivors, this was the first time they had spoken publicly about their experiences. The prosecution's case rested on eyewitness accounts, captured documents, and Stangl's admissions during pre-trial interrogations. He did not deny his role as commandant. Instead, his defense argued that he had followed orders and never directly harmed anyone. Survivor testimony formed the emotional core of the trial. Samuel Rashman, who had escaped during the August 1943 uprising and testified at Nuremberg in 1945, returned to identify Stangl. Other survivors described the camp's layout, the fake railway station, and Stangl's presence in white riding clothes. They recalled his detached manner, the way he inspected the camp as if touring a factory. One witness testified that Stangl had remarked that the camp ran like clockwork. Stangl's testimony revealed a man who rationalized his actions through bureaucratic language. He insisted he had been only responsible for the camp administration, not what happened there. He claimed he had requested transfers but had been refused. When asked how he reconciled his role with what occurred under his command, he responded that he had not thought of the deportees as individuals. He described them as cargo. The prosecution argued that Stangl's administrative efficiency had been essential to the camp's operation and that his knowledge made him directly responsible. On December 22, 1970, after 7 months of proceedings, the verdict was delivered. Franz Stangl was found guilty of co-responsibility for the deaths of 900,000 people and sentenced to life imprisonment, showing no visible reaction to the verdict. Stangl was transferred to Kaiserwerth prison in Düsseldorf. In early 1971, British journalist Gitta Sereny conducted more than 70 hours of interviews with him for her book, Into That Darkness. In these conversations, Stangl remained defensive but occasionally showed cracks in his rationalizations. He admitted that he had known what was happening at Treblinka from the beginning and acknowledged his organizational skills had made operations more efficient, but he insisted he had been powerless to refuse his assignment. On June 28, 1971, just 19 hours after his final interview with Sereny, Franz Stangl died of heart failure in his prison cell. He was 63 years old and he had served less than 6 months of his life sentence. Sereny later wrote that during their last conversation, Stangl had seemed close to acknowledging the full weight of his decisions, but whether he experienced genuine remorse remained unclear. For 16 years, one of history's most wanted men assembled cars in a Brazilian factory under his own name. His escape revealed how easily war criminals slipped through the cracks when no one was looking closely enough. His capture proved that survivors never stopped searching. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, watch Heinrich Müller, the Gestapo chief who vanished after World War II, next. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for more history inside, and we'll see you in the next one.